closer to a match. Times like these, they come and go, so let this feeling grow.
As soon as he got to their apartment, they began to punch and kick him. All four, Franklin, Adams, Foyle, Weatherall, were kicking and punching him. His face was being stomped on. Foyle was kicking him as she was holding her little dog, because she actually dropped the dog on him while she was kicking him. You can't make this stuff.
Come forward, please. You were Queta Weatherall, present with Mr. Grove, your attorney and the state's attorney. Earlier, you pleaded guilty in 23 CR 24, the first-degree felony of aggravated kidnapping. A pre-sentence report has been prepared. The parties had an opportunity to review it. And are there any corrections or changes to it? First of all, from the state? No, Your Honor. And defense.
Yes, Your Honor. There are several changes that we would like to make to the report.
Okay.
And I'll address these kind of in one large things, although there are spread throughout this. Under the defendant's version on page 1, the probation officer basically says that Ms. Weatherall did not accept responsibility, did not say she did anything, and therefore was not being truthful. After going over this with Ms. Weatherall, and I was not present here in the interview with the probation officer, I believe that Ms. Weatherall did not understand much of what the questioning was, and there were a number of things that she would indicate that she would, or could be indicative that she was not involved in this. She was involved. She accepts responsibility, Judge. This occurred in her. I'm sorry.
Look at on page 4, David. It says, despite pleading guilty. Okay, see, yeah, that's the key thing that bothers me here that we need to talk about. It says, despite pleading guilty, the defendant never accepts responsibility. She did not know what was happening to the victim. She went to the bedroom, go to sleep, didn't find out until waking up, was blaming alcohol use as the reason she passed out and does not remember anything. Okay, so that was the summary of the recommendations by the report that are disturbing.
And I'd like to address that before Phil's
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Miss Weatherall was the person who was the leasing at this apartment. This was on Super Bowl Sunday. Miss Weatherall and 3 other people went to a Super Bowl party at another location. It was over sometime after midnight. They came back to Miss Weatherall's apartment. She was the only tenant there, the only one on the lease, the only one that had responsibility for the apartment. Basically, sometime after 2 o'clock, they came back. Mr. White, the victim in this case, was not present. Someone brought him, an Uber driver brought him over to the apartment. The 2 men that were involved in this and Mr. White were in the apartment next door, apartment 249, not Miss Weatherall's apartment. But Miss Weatherall could hear what was going on through the walls and could tell that somebody was being beaten or arguing and this type of thing. She did not do anything about that. Later, they brought him, the 2 men, brought Mr. White over to her apartment, and then the beating sort of continued. I think if you read the police reports, and I think the probation department representative will agree, that the two men were the ones that were mainly involved as the main participants in this. But it was Miss Weatherall's apartment. She's the one who should have called the police. She didn't. She saw what was going on. Later, they took him into Mr. White into a shower, kept him there, kept him tied up apparently until later that day, when sometime around 2:30 in the afternoon, more than 12 hours after they had returned from the football game, the police arrived, and they were called about that. And Miss Weatherall knew what was going on. She'd been drinking. She was not in the type situation that she should have done more, but she did not. And that's the way that it is. Now, as far as striking Mr. White, she doesn't remember, striking him, although he told both of the police, or several of the police officers, that all four of the people did kick him when he was laying in the floor. Miss Weatherall is 36 years old. If you look at her criminal responsibility is one pot check and one traffic ticket. This is an aberration. This is not what she has done. In fact, in January of this year, and this occurred in February, she received her TWIC card and had a job that she was to start for the B&S Railroad as a switching person. She had not started this job yet, but she was supposed to start this job. She got involved in some people that she should not have been involved in, obviously, did not do a very good choice of who she was associated with on this occasion. But again, that's not indicative of what's been shown in her record. She also, when the police were called, the other three were all arrested on outstanding warrants for other occasions. Miss Weatherall had no outstanding warrants because she had never been charged with anything. In addition, on page 2 at the top, it says that Mr. White is concerned about having to go back to the same apartment complex because he's afraid that the people will beat him again, things of that nature. Miss Weatherall has moved out of the apartment. She's moved back home with her parents, Reverend Raymond and Geraldine Warner. She will be living there with them if she is put on probation and is going to get away from this lifestyle that she was apparently attempting to adopt. She also has graduated from Westbrook High School. She attended and graduated from Vista College and received a degree from them. She's attended Lamar Port Arthur and has like one class left to get that. She had a wonderful opportunity to make something of her life, and things were going real well until this incident here. And this incident is just it's terrible. There's no two ways about it. But I think it is an aberration, and it's something that she will not do. When this occurred, the other three were taken to jail. She went down and talked to the police, but she was not arrested until a week later or something like that. But she's also been in custody more than 6 months for this offense. And basically, there's no excuse for her doing what she did by not calling EMS or calling 911 or calling the police. But she realizes that she had a moral and a legal responsibility to do that, and just didn't do it. And I think that she will tell the court that she accepts responsibility and would ask the court again to give her probation. She's not like many of the people I represent who had other troubles before. This is her first criminal arrest, and all that is reinforced by the probation report. So I'd ask the court to grant her either deferred adjudication, considering this is a first-degree felony, or at least grant her regular probation on this matter.
All right, Stan.
Judge, if you remember correctly, the co-defendant, Ms. Rebecca Foyle, tried the same defense by saying she did nothing. She was in the other room, and then finally admitted that she was out kicking this gentleman. They were doing this to get his disability check. They beat him so bad that he has lost sight in his left eye. He does not have sight in his eye anymore. He was hospitalized and was badly injured. And Judge, the funny thing is these guys all knew him. They all knew, every one of them knew him. I know that the men were more culpable as they did most of the beating, but these women were while he was on the ground and helpless. This complainant, Mr. White, said he still remembers everything that occurred that day when he passes by. And he said that he remembers her specifically, the look in her eyes. Said she had a look in her eyes as if she was enjoying it while she was kicking him. I took it into account, her lack of criminal history. I took into account the fact that she was not as culpable as the two men, even though they were kicking this man while he was on the ground. He was taken to the bathtub to be basically, as the court explained last time, almost waterboarded. He was boarded. He was tortured, basically, trying to get him to tell where his disability check was. I limited her exposure to 10 years, just like I did Ms. Foyle, because of her limited history. And I think that the 10 years in prison is a fair sentence. I think it's more than fair under the circumstances for what they did to this man, who was a former friend. He was a roommate of Ms. Foyle, and I believe a roommate of some of these others that were involved in this. And so I think we should send a message to her and to these people that were involved that this violent behavior to rob someone who wasn't doing anything but just coming over to the apartment, it should be sent to them that this will not be tolerated in this county. So we're asking for the 10 years in prison.
Anything you want to say? Go ahead.
I just want to say that I'm sorry. And so you mentioned that Mr. White and they're ashamed that would happen. Honestly, wouldn't know me again. Whether I'm in church and I'm a pastor's daughter. Something.
Oh, yeah.
That I'm sorry and I apologize. I'm very ashamed.
The report here states that was prepared by the probation office, which is very in-depth, that the complainant, the victim here, still remembers everything that occurred. Every time he passes by the location, he says, where this occurred, he's reminded of the severe beating he had to take. And he doesn't know why or nor understand how the defendants would attack him, because he would have helped them if they needed anything. The defendants took turns beating him with their hands and objects while his hands were tied behind his back. He says, while you were assaulting him, you had a look in your eyes as if though you were enjoying it. that you were kicking him in the head while he was on the ground. He suffered a fractured neck, a fractured back. His teeth were all loose, and he now needs surgery on his left eye. That's serious. I mean, that's just cold-blooded. Let me ask you, I mean, why, have you ever been involved in kind of risky behavior before? At all? Never?
Yeah, like I said, I'm a church girl and bad situation.
Okay.
You moved back in with your parents and you're gonna stay with your parents, aren't you?
Yes.
Because I'm not sure if that probably had something to do with the location where this occurred, those apartments. But that's speculation on my part.
Were y'all using drugs that night? Illegal drugs at all?
No,
Man,
no, just beers. Those that's it.
so you pleaded guilty to this first degree felony of aggravated robbery, being a party to this. What did you do? What did you do wrong?
Judge, just for the record, she pled guilty to aggravated kidnapping.
I'm sorry.
Not
I'm looking at
aggravated
this.
robbery.
Aggravated
And
kidnapping.
I don't know that makes any difference.
Well,
I
it's-
think the record of these leaders.
They're both bad.
Yeah, well, yes, sir. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just wanted to keep
You're right.
that clear.
I'm gonna put that aside. So on this aggravated kidnapping, first degree felony, what did you do wrong?
And I realized that I should call it.
Man,
I should call for help. It was a job.
no, what did you do wrong?
It didn't stop it. I didn't stop it. I didn't
You didn't affirmatively do something?
Yes.
You didn't kick him like he said you did?
Yes.
Okay. While he was incapacitated, you were kicking him. Is that right or wrong? Why would you do such a thing? I mean, there are 4 of you. Was that enough? People to hurt him? What do you think kicking the man in the head is going to do? You don't think that's going to severely hurt somebody? But y'all weren't using drugs or anything that night?
Not on my part. I'm not sure what they were on.
Have you ever had a problem with drugs at all? I'm just curious. Okay.
Although, Judge, there is a report, the probation officer asked her about drugs and she did admit she has used drugs.
What?
In the past. And
What drugs? What drugs? What drugs?
marijuana and alcohol were the 2 that was mentioned, Judge, in the pre-sentence report. Yeah, but she did acknowledge that she did use drugs already.
Well, in the report, it says methamphetamine,
Yes, sir.
encyclidine, PCP. What's used to involve animals. LSD, synthetic marijuana, all of those are hallucinogenics. They're terrible. But correct me if I'm wrong, but you have been hospitalized 20 times for this. This says you have a history of 20 hospitalizations, right?
It's not just for that one thing. I got in a car accident.
For different things, but they include drug abuse.
No,
All of those are crime. Methamphetamine, PCP, LSD, those are serious felonies.
That was the one time I was.
One time?
That was all on my system. That one time I went to Bentalk, I got in a car accident. I was there for a while. I was a nurse.
No, wait. At one time, you had meth, PCP, LSD, synthetic marijuana, all in your system at the same time? I don't think so. That you would have never survived that.
My parents are not against they come to know.
They don't know. They weren't there with you.
They-
Were they, did they see you ingest those drugs? Did they see you ingest those drugs?
No,
Well, then they wouldn't know the real truth, would they?
they were there when the doctor told me that it was in my system.
I just,
I've changed it, you know.
ma'am,
I've changed and not that this.
well, no, you committed this offense this February. God bless. What do you mean you changed? Are you changing for the better or worse?
Better.
Well, this was terrible. You almost part of almost killing a man.
More embarrassing.
This is just a very cold hearted. What's state asking for?
10 years, same as Ms. Volga.
Yeah.
Probation department said she set for trial in September. I'm sorry.
No, we just sent us, right?
Just-
Anything else? If nothing else, I'm going to find in this case you have pleaded guilty to this serious first degree felony of aggravated kidnapping voluntarily, knowingly, intelligently. See, what you pleaded guilty to is of intentionally and knowingly being a party to abducting the victim. And you committed that with the intent to facilitate the commission of robbery or to facilitate the flight after the attempt or commission of robbery by inflicting bodily injury on the victim. And it's just not bodily injury. This has to be all deemed as serious bodily injury, which is threat to his life. Well, your plea was entered voluntarily, knowingly, intelligently. There was sufficient evidence supporting your guilty plea from State's Exhibit 1 admitted in the hearing to find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And I now find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I am following this agreement that, by the way, was fashioned to a maximum of 10 years in prison. But as you know, you are exposed to life imprisonment for this offense. Do you understand? I now find you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of this serious first degree felony. I'm following this agreement. You are hereby sentenced to confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice to serve a term of 10 years. You'll be given credit for all time you have served toward this offense. This was just not an assault. It was just not a kidnapping. This was a torture of another human being. That's inhumane. I can't imagine treating another human being like that. One of God's creatures. And there, you did a terrible deed. The aggravated robbery will be dismissed.
Yes, sir.
As part of this agreement.
Sir.
Yes, ma'am.
You did an affirmative finding on Rebecca Fuller.
Well, she's can stand by. What are you asking for on the affirmative finding?
It was not a weapon used.
Feet, hands and feet. No, actually feet, but kicked. You may not want to. I don't know. It's up to you.
It did. It does, it says inflicting bodily injury. It doesn't say inflicting serious bodily injury.
Yes, sir.
So, an affirmative finding is not made that a deadly weapon was used for her. Ma'am, that makes a difference in parole.
In how much good time.
Plus, you're parolable in 1/4 rather than 1/2. That you would have been had I assigned an affirmative finding. So I'm not. You will be released earlier. Anything else? That is all.
Hand me my screen box.
I can't get no sleep, please make my life no simple. Miles inside these shoes, so I don't stop my tiptoe.
Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Ma'am? Ma'am? Can you hear it?
No.
Okay.
I have no patience for that. But trust me, out of the day, I'm sitting up here, I'm the one that needs the grace.